Today, we're going to try to make a video hiking. Now, I typically don't make videos hiking. I've never made a video hiking. Actually, that's a lie. I have 2 videos on my channel of like Alta Peak and Lakes Trail, but this is going to be one of my normal videos while I hike. Those were kind of instructional videos, if you will. But, I think a lot when I hike, and I'm hiking alone, like I normally do. And when I hike, I usually don't like to use my phone much at all. I like to be with my thoughts. I like to contemplate things that have been happening in my life. Contemplate questions that I've been asking. Because I think people don't give important questions enough time. You ask yourself an important question and you think about it for a couple minutes and then you're like, oh, I don't know the answer. But I think true contemplation involves hours of fruitless contemplation. You gotta get through the junk to get to the good stuff sometimes. Oh, sorry, I thought I saw something. I am in a mountain lion country, so my head will be on a swivel this hike. But I got bear spray. Don't worry, I'm prepared. But yeah, people don't give enough time to the important questions. They contemplate them for a short amount of time and they say, I don't know. But you got to get through a lot of junk sometimes to get to the good stuff. If you've ever tried meditating, the first 10 minutes or so could be very tedious. Could feel like you're just doing it to check a box. But if you can get past that, and I don't meditate that much, but if you can get past that, sometimes you can get into a really profound space and you can start recalling things that you thought that you didn't even remember that you remembered. And you can start contemplating things and making the subconscious conscious. And that's truly profound. When you can make the subconscious conscious, you're in a very good space. Actually, I think videos record better if I do it like this. So I'm gonna try to do it like this. It's very rocky, so sorry about losing my train of thought. But as I hike, I seem to come back to a lot of truths and just the same things over and over again. When the hike first starts, I'll be thinking about, videos I've made recently, things I've read in a book, things that I've watched in a video recently. But then you start getting deeper and your legs start hurting. I've been hiked recently, so this one's hurting a bit, but you start coming to the same conclusions. And I just recently had a very weird thought. And it was, why don't I turn around? And I thought that was weird. Because I've never turned around on a hike. But, the thought just came by. And then it reminded me of a something I tell myself a lot, which is how disgraceful it is for the mind to give up before the body. Your mind is so much stronger than your body. And if you allow your mind to be controlled by your body, I think you're doomed for a life of misery. And let me explain. Just because you can't push past limits in the gym or hiking doesn't mean you're a bad person. But not being able to tell your body no and tell your body that the mind's in control, and not just the mind, the higher self. Tell your mind and your body that the higher self is in control, not the lower self. The lower self takes deep pleasure in earthly things, takes deep pleasure in things the flesh loves, like lust, earthly things like greed and pride and authority, gluttony, pleasures of that nature. The lower self and the body love, and the higher self detests, it hates. And the more you're able to tell your body, no, you're not in control, the more you can rid yourself of the flesh. The more you can be your true self. Because it's not easy to say no. Desires are strong, especially earthly and fleshly ones. That's why you need to, as Seneca says, treat the body rigorously so the mind will not disobey. Tell yourself, I'm doing this, and then do it. Because as you do something hard, you start to rationalize it, and you start trying to cope and back out. You tell yourself, I got 2 miles left in this walk. I'm going to jog it. And, you jog a mile, and you haven't jogged in a while, and you're dead. You're extremely tired. You can taste iron in your mouth. Your legs hurt. And that's when that voice in your head starts saying, good job. You ran a mile. You jogged a mile. You haven't done that in so long. Good job. Just take a breather for the next mile. Take a nice breeze walk. You earned it. But that's not what you told yourself. You told yourself I was going to jog these 2 miles. And if you rationalize in that sense, then you'll rationalize in more ways than one. And it's crazy how this stuff flows. How's it going?
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
Thank you. It's crazy how this stuff trickles down, and if you do it in one way, you'll do it in many ways. If you cheat on your diet, who's to say what else you're going to cheat on? Now, it's not to say you're going to, but it gives you a look into the type of person you are. You know, we are judged by our deeds, and we are known by our actions. And how you know yourself is how you act. You know, you're not a generous person if you're never generous. You know, it doesn't matter if you always think about being generous. If you don't actually serve and be generous, then you're not. You are known by your actions. And if you're a person who cheats on his diet, then you're known as a cheater. And I don't mean by other people, even worse, by yourself. And once you're known to be a cheater, that voice in your head, it knows where to strike. It knows where to hit you where it hurts. It knows where to hit you where you'll cope and you'll rationalize with your decisions. It knows. And if you're a cheater in one way, you'll start cheating in many other ways. Another thing I like to tell myself on these hikes is, well, first I'll give you a story. I'm not gonna lie, I tried recording this video once, and then I had to check which way to go, so I had to stop the video. And I was gonna just clip it together, but I figured I'd just restart. I don't like doing that. I like having one raw video. And I think I told this story in the last video. I hope I didn't tell it at the start of this video, because that'll be very silly. And I'm sorry if you have to hear the story twice. And you honestly probably won't even hear it if I do tell the story twice, because it'll be a waste of a video. But enough of that. I was hiking in Death Valley once upon a time, and I hadn't gone hiking in a while, and I was gonna be camping that night in Death Valley. Now it was the winter, so it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that hot out, I mean. But I mean, it was Death Valley, so the sun was beating. But I was probably the heaviest I've been in a while. I was bulking, so I was heavy for a reason, but still the heaviest I've been. Not optimal for hiking. I hadn't been hiking or done cardio in a while, so I had to do this like 12-mile hike, 5,000 feet of elevation gain. It was pretty strenuous, and about a mile in, I was dead. You know, right now I'm probably 5+ miles into this hike, 3,000 feet of elevation gain, and I'm doing a lot better than I was that first mile in Death Valley. And I thought, wow, I'm in for it. I'm in for it. And I had to dig deep. I had to dig deep that day. And I learned I can surpass my limits. And I kid you not, for probably 2 hours, maybe even more. And I went back to this. I've gone back to this technique so often. And I brought it to the real world too. I put my head down like this. I stared at my feet. And I said, 1, 1, 1, 1, in terms of my steps. I said 1, 1, 1. You can always go one more step. You can always go one more step. You can always go one more step. And, you know, I didn't let myself worry about the future. I didn't let myself be overtaken by the idea and the concept that I had 10 miles left and I was already felt like I was gonna die and I was already super tired. I didn't let myself be daunted by that fact. I just focused on the present moment and I focused on the next step I could take because I could see the next step. I could see what had to be done to reach my goal. And my goal seemed so far. And it was one of those hikes, because you're in Death Valley, so it's pretty bare. It was one of those hikes, right when you start, you can almost see where you're gonna end. And you're just like, wow, that's far away. And when you start struggling and you look up and you think, wow, that's far away, it sucks. So I had to put my head down and I had to say one. And like I said, that's helped me in real life too, because I ended up finishing that hike and camping out that night and then hiking back the next day. And it wasn't easy, but I surpassed my limits. And I did something I didn't know if I could do in the moment, but I did it, not by worrying about the future, not by letting myself be overrun by the thought of 10 more miles, but I let myself swallow a pill that was much more manageable, which was one more step. And we can always take one more step in life. You can always take one more. Now, I've been thinking, like I said, a lot about, hikes, or about videos that I make, that I watch, things that I read during hikes. And as of late, the videos I've made are, how to be a person you like, how to have a perfect day. It's so often what you do. It's so often not what you do, but what you didn't do that matters. And I'm thinking about these videos. And I'm thinking about the truths that they hold. And I'm thinking about how your internal state is really all that matters. If I was in a bad mood and I came to do this hike today to get away from it all, to just have a good time, I think personally some people that works for, and a lot of people it temporarily works for. But for me, I don't know. I don't think it does. Especially when I'm alone, especially when I'm with my thoughts. Because it's like you were in a bad state. And then you came here expecting it to fix you. You came here expecting the mountain to give you meaning, give you purpose, give you direction. But the mountain can't do that. You have to do that. And when you come to a place with expectations here, and I love hiking, so I still they're here, but they only get fulfilled to here. That's a big gap. That's a big gap to be disappointed. This wasn't everything I thought it was gonna be. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, the hike's fun. But, I'm busting my balls out here. Why don't I feel good? Why am I not happy? Like, I have the day off from work. I thought work was why I wasn't happy. Why am I out here in a worse state than at work? And it's because it's your internal state. Your internal state gives you meaning or takes all meaning away. You could be partaking in charitable endeavors, and if your internal state isn't there, it doesn't matter. You're not going to feel like a good person. I just saw a hawk, sorry. But if your internal state's there, you can feel satisfied no matter what you're doing. And I've ran away from so many problems and so many things for so long, and thinking that it was my job, or thinking that it was a person that I was around, or thinking it was something outside of me, thinking it was the number in my bank account. And if there's one thing I've noticed, the number going up in your bank account. I mean, I'm not rich by any means, but I have a decent amount of money. It doesn't make me happier. Seeing the number go up doesn't do anything. All it really does is remind me that if I die, I just saved a bunch of money for nothing. And that doesn't mean, I think, you need to spend your money before you die. I sacrifice so much time for money, unfortunately. And that's one of the biggest battles I struggle with, because I came up with a rule. Actually, I think I heard it somewhere, but I can't give credit, so I won't take credit, but I can't give it either. And that is never do anything solely for money. And I think that's a very powerful truth. And I think that's very powerful and very true. But I find myself so often doing it. And I'm kind of torn because, I found out a lot about myself from my job. But no, actually, yeah, I found out a lot about myself. It was something I needed to do. But I think it's getting to a certain point where it's like, you have another calling. What's keeping you here? And it's like security, money, safety. Which, at the ripe age of 22, I don't believe should be strong words in your vocabulary. Depending on your life circumstance, obviously. Some people aren't so lucky as me. A lot of people aren't. I'm very lucky. But for me, I don't think those are words that should be in my vocabulary. But as Viktor Frankl says, the meaning of life truly is, to give life meaning. Viktor Frankl in Auschwitz was probably happier than most teenage boys today. And that's a wild thought. And that should tell so many people about the nature of happiness. That it is so internal, but everyone's looking for it externally. Everyone's looking for purpose, for meaning externally, from this external world. And I think to a certain extent, there is meaning externally, like family, kids, feeling like you're helping out the community and the world, because we are social beings. But if you're messed up internally, man, that stuff isn't gonna fix it. It starts in here. And that's why I don't really spend a lot of time with politics and all that stuff, because it's like, I know I'm so messed up internally, and I need to find myself internally. Focusing my attention outward is not the way to do it. So I've been thinking about that a lot, and just how I need to find meaning in my life internally and give it externally. Because I told a story in that video about how I was at a place I dreamed of, super sad, super depressed. And I've been in places close to nightmares, and I've found meaning, and I've been content and even happy. And that fact went to show me that it's not the external, it's the internal. I also believe oneself should be lifted up by oneself. I don't think I've ever shared this point. But what better time than 27 minutes into a video? Because, people who there probably isn't going to be many people watching right now. And if you are, thanks. But I don't really believe in therapy. And, there's a lot of people I respect who go to therapy and say how good it is. And there's a lot of people, I believe, who are smarter and wiser than me who go to therapy and say how beneficial therapy is. But I just don't. I try to always see things from other people's perspectives. But that one I just have never been able to see. How is me going and talking about my problems going to help? Unless I have a hardcore therapist, I don't think I need someone telling me it's not your fault, which is maybe just my misinterpretation of therapy. But I need people telling me to suck it up. I need people telling me to grow up. I need people giving me real wisdom and real facts on how to live a better life. Not telling me that it's not your fault, or I don't know. I think a lot of people make problems out to be bigger than they are with therapy. I don't really have a lot to say on the subject, though. I'm probably just ignorant. I'm most definitely ignorant. But that's what I believe, so sue me, I guess. Is this not so much more therapeutical? Let it be known, though, that one of my favorite movies is Good Will Hunting, so maybe I'm just coping. Maybe I need therapy. But this is truly my therapy, man. A nice walk alone with my thoughts. Don't get much better than that. And you know, a lot of people ask me, don't you get lonely? I did a 17-day road trip alone. I've done a lot of hikes alone. You know, I've spent a lot of time in California the last 2 years where I have no family, where I don't know really anybody, and I spent a lot of time alone. And sometimes I get lonely, but I think only in times of weakness. Most of the time, though, I'm just alone, and that's beautiful, man. Aloneness is beautiful. Your soul is the loudest when you are alone. I can hear my soul the clearest when I'm alone. And I attribute my change, because I mean, most people on here probably don't know me. I've changed a lot, and I attribute my change to being alone. I didn't have to do what the other people wanted to do anymore. I had freedom. It was up for me to decide what to do, where to go. And then I discovered reading, and I discovered philosophy, and I discovered moral excellence. And I realized all along, these were the things that spoke to my soul. And, you know, I think I needed to get away from home to break my habits, because habits are so environmental. You know, habits are so environmental. You know, if you've ever read Atomic Habits, I mean, you know what I'm talking about, but, you know, there's like a story about a girl who rides horses when she's younger. She always used to smoke cigarettes while she rode horses. And she quit cigarettes and riding horses for about 20 years. And then she hopped on a horse and she wanted to smoke a cigarette. First time she had the urge. And that's because she attributed riding horses with smoking cigarettes. And some of us are trying to break bad habits. In the environment, we created the bad habit, which is so hard. It's not impossible, but you have to understand you're gonna have to work hard, and it's not gonna be easy. But isn't it so much more worth it when it isn't easy? Man, I hate things that are easy. In the moment, you love them. But looking back, you wish your limits were tested. You wish you surpassed them. You know, it's hard things are hard. But mostly anything worth doing in life is hard. And that's why the people you look up to have done hard things. They've risked it. What's with my camera, but I don't want to mess up this video. You know, when you're, like I said, oneself should be lifted up by oneself. And if you feel lonely, that's not good. And that's a problem. But that is not a problem that needs to be answered by company. That is a problem that needs to be answered by more alone time. Because if you can't, you got to spend the most time with yourself out of anyone in this world. Every day, every second, you are with yourself. And to be afraid of him, to not enjoy his company or her, is truly unfortunate. And if you don't, you just need more alone time. Because you should love when your soul is speaking clearly. And you should love when its voice is loud. And solitude is when that happens. When you're away from the crowd. I wonder what people would think about so many cultural norms if they never grew up within the herd. There's so many cultural norms that are so weird that no one questions. Like how accepting and accepted drinking alcohol is. And how accepted nowadays obesity is. And how accepted eating unhealthy is. And how accepted all these things are. That should not be accepted. I'm not saying we need to shame fat people, but I was a chubby kid. I would have considered myself fat. And I was miserable because of being overweight for a lot of my life. I was shy. I never wanted to give my all because I didn't want to look silly because I was fat. I felt bad all the time. I didn't feel good. And I just wish fat kids wasn't accepted. Because it's really not the kid's fault. Because kids usually don't pick all the courses, or kids usually don't, decide what they're gonna eat each and every day. That's just my little rant today.